bomb is about to go off in DC, and only the true fans are ready for what's coming. The architect of the Commanders is walking a tightrope with that linebacker, who could be our next big mistake in the first round, while executing a seismic trade that has left Cleveland vulnerable. 3 fatal crises threaten to destroy all our progress: a fractured offensive line, an experimental secondary, and a backfield that could collapse at any moment. The front office has 72 hours to solve this deadly puzzle before our NFC East rivals discover our weaknesses. Subscribe now to learn the truth they're hiding, and leave your like if you want us to expose the secret moves before the draft. Right now, there's a mistake the Washington Commanders cannot afford to make in this draft. What do I mean? It turns out that analyst Dalton Wasserman from Pro Football Focus just dropped a bombshell. He's shouting that the team should avoid linebacker Demetrius Knight Jr. in the first round. And you know what? I agree. Now let me explain why. First, context. Because without context, there's no debate. Adam Peters has only 5 picks in this draft after aggressive moves in free agency. 5 picks, my friends. And when you have so few bullets, you can't waste a single one. Knight Jr. is a polarizing talent, yes, with impressive physique and 2 explosive seasons between Georgia Tech and South Carolina. But do the Commanders really need a linebacker in the first round when they have Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, both selected to the second-team All-Pro last season? Let me tell you clearly, nitrogen monoxide. Here's the crux of the matter. Wagner is 35 years old. Yes, he dominated in 2024, but retirement is just around the corner. So why not look for his replacement? But there's Jordan McGee, the kid who barely saw action in his rookie year due to injuries. You don't want to repeat the Cowboys' mistake with Micah Parsons, forcing him to change positions, do you? I ask because Knight Jr. is a project, a raw athlete who would need years of development. And does Washington have that luxury with their competitive window opening now? Forget it. The urgent needs are elsewhere: edge rusher, cornerback, offensive tackle. Or are we going to ignore that the defense had only 35 sacks last year, 24th in the NFL? Or that Benjamin St. Just is still a question mark at corner? I tell you this, if names like Braylon Trice on EDGE or Quinion Mitchell at CB fall when pick 29 comes up, it would be a historic crime not to take them. Now, let me emphasize, Wagner and Louvu are machines, but they combine for 257 tackles and 11 sacks in 20-20-4. Why saturate that position when you can reinforce critical trenches? Peters is a genius at evaluating talent. Yes, but here the equation is clear. Day 1 of the draft is for immediate. I am PACTS, not projects. Knight Jr. could be a star in 2027. And by then, we might be in another rebuild. But beware, I'm not saying to totally ignore the linebacker. Mid-rounds, there's the sweet spot. A Trevin Wallace in the 3rd round? Yes, please. But spending first-round capital on Knight Jr. would be like buying a Ferrari to go to the grocery store. Unnecessary luxury. Here's my final argument. Peters has unlimited credit after reviving this franchise. But even geniuses stumble. If they repeat the success of 2024, it must be by bringing in players who elevate the ceiling now. Knight Jr. is pure risk, and with only 5 picks, can they afford to fail? The answer terrifies you. Now I ask you, Commander Fam, what position would you prioritize in the first round? Edge CB or risk it with a linebacker of the future? Let's break this news like a commander's sack. What's Adam Peters cooking up right now? Because let me tell you, this man never rests on his laurels. Did they just trade a first-round draft pick to the Cleveland Browns to accumulate more capital? Yes, folks. And here comes the juicy part. In a move that smells like pure strategic genius, our GM turns that pick into 3 key pieces. First, the transaction. The Browns, desperate for a QB, trade up to secure Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. The result? Washington gets An edge from Marshall named Mike Green and 2 secondary defenders. Is this a scam or a masterstroke? I tell you, Peters is playing chess while others play checkers. Second, the analysis of Mike Green. 17 sacks in 2024, 23 tackles for loss. A beast in the Sun Belt. But wait, are we looking at the next Chase Young? Or another prospect hyped up by weak competition? Now I ask you, would you trust a pass rusher who dominated in smaller conferences, but has physical doubts, 6'2", 245 pounds, and personal background issues? Dan Quinn isn't scared. He loves rushers with bend and explosion. Green is pure speed chaos, but will he hold up in the NFC East? Third, the master plan. It's not just Green. The additional picks, Lathan Ransom, Isaac Waxter, inject youth into a secondary that allowed 28.5 points per game in 2024. Necessary reinforcements? Absolutely. But don't let them sell you the ointment. The genius here is that Peters steals picks in a draft where no one has capital. Cleveland, Las Vegas, Denver, all hungry for QBs. And Washington, selling dreams. For the future, here comes the controversy. Should we risk it with a raw EDGE like Green when WRs like Xavier Worthy were still available? Poof! I remind you, Jaden Daniels needs protection, yes, but do you know what's scarier than a QB without protection? A defense that doesn't pressure. Fowler went to Dallas, and Quinn needs his new Micah Parsons. Green could be that. Or an expensive luxury dot, and now my final verdict. Adam Peters is not afraid. He's rebuilding Washington, accumulating talent even if it hurts. Risks? Like the tacos at the Burgundy and Gold BBQ. But the message is clear. Trust my process. And now I ask you, Commanders Nation, is Mike Green the pass rusher that will unlock this defense? Or should we have bet on an elite cornerback like Kalen King in the second round? Do you really think Adam Peters is done building this team? Let me attack this debate with the rawness it deserves. First need, is the offensive line a patch or a solution? Let me tell you, Laramie Tunsil is a beast, an elite left tackle. But what about the interior? Sam Cosmi, that warrior, is battling a ligament tear. A player who was a pillar in 2024. Without him, Brandon Coleman will move to guard or to right tackle if Andrew Wiley doesn't step up. There's a void here, friends. And if Biotish at center is fine, but I ask you, what depth do they have if another starter goes down? They need young blood in the draft. A versatile lineman who covers multiple positions. Will they wait until the second round? A risky endeavor if they don't act. Second critical point. Is the secondary in experiment mode? Martian Lattimore and Mike Sainristil are talents, yes, but Jeremy Chin went to Las Vegas. Will Harris and Jonathan Jones are temporary patches, not solutions. Veterans in rotation roles? That doesn't scare Patrick Mahomes. The NFL today demands too deep in. All positions. They need a hard-hitting safety or a physical cornerback to lock down star receivers. Where's the future after Emmanuel Forbes? The draft has gems like Georgia Melton or Clemson safety, Jordan Thomas. Adam Peters. Don't sleep on this. Third, cry for help. Are Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler enough? Respect me. I love Eckler as a third down back, but in 2024, there were games where the ground was a desert. Jaden Daniels had to improvise too much. And Robinson, although a tank, doesn't have the breakaway speed to scare defenses. This draft is loaded with young running backs. Will Peters risk a first-round pick on Omarion Hampton if he falls to 29? I doubt it, but in the second, Quinton Judkins or Trevelyan Henderson would change the pace. Are they really going to settle for the same? A Dan Quinn offense without a ground game is like a Ferrari without gas. Adam Peters has made bold moves, but there are still cracks that the 2025 season could exploit. Do you really want to see Daniels being chased because the line can't replace Cosmi? or a secondary that collapses in the fourth quarter due to lack of depth? Not to mention relying on Eckler, who's already pushing 30. I ask you, Commanders Nation, what should the team prioritize in the draft? An offensive line to protect, Daniels a dominant secondary, or an explosive running back to relieve pressure? Attention, Commanders Nation. The team's rebuilding is underway and the draft is key. I ask you, loyal Commander fam, what position should be the priority in the first round? A lethal edge to hunt quarterbacks, ACB to lock down a whole side, or risk it on a future linebacker who changes the defense's axis? The controversy continues with the selection of Mike Green in the second round. Is this versatile safety the pass rusher that will unlock Dan Quinn's scheme? Or should we have bet on a game changer like Kalen King to bolster the secondary? Defend your stance in the comments. Here's the ultimate question. Commanders Nation, what is more urgent to build a contending team? An ironclad offensive line to protect Jaden Daniels, a dominant secondary to suffocate opponents, or an explosive running back to relieve pressure and revive the ground game? Make yourself heard. Leave your strategy in the comments and tell us which moves excite you or keep you up at night. Subscribe to be part of this family that beats to the rhythm of burgundy and gold. Hit the bell and be the first to analyze every rumor, signing, and key play of the new era. And remember, hail to the Redskins!